Hey guys, welcome back to the Catalyst Storieroad series. My name is Philip Gilpin Jr. and I am the CEO and Executive Director of Catalyst. Here to welcome you for this hour of talking about children's content from production through distribution with a couple of experts in the field. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to our host for the hour, Miss Mary Lynn. But I just realized I forgot to say before I do that, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the YouTube comments and Facebook comments section, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can later in the hour. And now, Miss Mary Lynn.
Thank you, Philip. Hello, everyone. We appreciate you being here and joining us today. And I acknowledge that everyone's hearts and minds are heavy, and we continue to find ways to support and educate ourselves for a better tomorrow. So we hope that this chat will provide you with a little bit of inspiration along your creative path. I'll start off by introducing our guests. So first off, we have Zeke Rodrigues Thomas, who is an award-winning filmmaker and on-camera talent with over a decade of experience in the entertainment industry. As executive producer at Mindjam Media, he produced Don't Go Alone, a scripted anthology Halloween series for Nickelodeon, as well as serving as showrunner on Super League Gaming's Minecraft City Champs, also on Nickelodeon. Most recently, he also served in a creative development capacity on Annie vs. Hayley, LeBake Off, Throwback with Nickelodeon, and many other VDS projects. Then we also have Brent Coble, who currently serves as the Director of Production and Development at Viacom CBS Digital Studios. In this role, Brent leads Nickelodeon's digital creative strategy, content development, and series production for screens of every size. In his tenure, Nickelodeon's YouTube channel has launched 25 new original series, gaining 6.5 million additional subscribers, along with over 3.5 billion video views. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Great to see you.
I don't know what to do with my face when the intros happen.
You just got to be awkward. You got to be deliciously awkward and be like, I didn't write these words about myself.
Yeah. I really like the part I wrote about screens of every size.
Yeah. That was probably my favorite part of your bio. Yeah.
It gave a bit of your personality in there, which I appreciate for sure. So when you and I were chatting the other day, Brent, you mentioned the Bill of Kids' Rights. And I wanted to start off talking about that because then I was looking it up and I found a plaque that was in the Nickelodeon headquarters posted from the 90s about this Bill of Rights. So can you explain that to us and how long Nick has been working on this?
Yeah, I mean, working at Nickelodeon and now Viacom CBS, one, in the midst of everything that's happening in the world and this movement that's going on, I feel really lucky to be a part of an organization that has taken such a strong stance on these things, that unequivocally Black Lives Matter, and we're not afraid to say that and shout it and celebrate it. I think is really great. A lot of that comes down to our leadership. Brian Robbins, who's an awesome guy, a fantastic manager of people, but he said something over the last few weeks that have really resonated. One, he posted the Kids' Declaration of Rights, which was something that Nickelodeon made in 1990. So this is literally a 30-year-old document that literally just outlines to kids in not a pandering way that they are worth it, that they have these rights, that if they see these rights being broken, they should speak up and not be afraid of it. I highly recommend everyone to Google it. I won't bore you by reading them, but it's really fascinating and amazing stuff, and just shows that the company I work for, their dedication isn't starting right now, that this whole thing has been a marathon, and it's really cool to hear and see. Mary Lynn, I think I told you this, but working on any children's entertainment, whether it's a single piece of content or for a big company, I've said since day one, especially working in the digital space, we have a social responsibility to create content that ... And the ending of that sentence that I used to say all the time really was to not make Jake Paul garbage. Let's not force feed kids nonsense, because that's kind of what else is out there. Let's make something that means more, that matters more. Mm-hmm. Recently, the end of that sentence has changed, obviously, because it needs to be more serious. And it comes directly from that Declaration of Rights, which is kids have the power to have a voice in their own future. And we need to celebrate that and also give families an avenue and an in to start having hard discussions, because a lot of these conversations are already happening inside of households. Kids are very aware, especially with COVID, about what's happening. They're tuned into the news. They're seeing what's going out. These conversations are already going on. So our responsibility now is to use that platform to not just like celebrate those voices right now, but to really instill in kids and kids entertainment these values that needed to be there all along. One mind-blowing fact, and then I'll step aside here. Brian, we were having a company-wide meeting, and he said this amazing statistic that I think resonates for anyone interested in making kids content, which is, I believe it was the Surgeon General released a study that racial bias can begin as young as age 2. And by age 12, your racial bias is pretty much locked in.
Wow.
What an incredible opportunity as creators of things to not just make vapid, bright colors and silly songs, but to do something that can directly affect our demographic. Is that demographic?
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's a very exciting and heartbreaking time. Everyone that I'm working with is fired up to continue doing this, and I don't think anyone else feels any different.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility, especially when you put it in those terms. Like, you naturally think it's a huge responsibility. These are young minds and influential, but from 2 to 12, that can be solidified within them is pretty mind-blowing to hear.
Yeah, and that's not to say, that we won't continue to make content that like 2 months ago, we made a piece called Every Fart Ever that our standards and practices team did not let us post. We'll still do dumb things, but what an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be out of work if we stop making dumb stuff. So
oh no, yeah. We've made careers on silly. We can't get rid of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there are a lot of different factors in children's content. I'm sure as you both are coming up with concepts and creating things, from the age range of the viewers of that show, different language that's being used. Is this an educational show or a fun show? So where do you both start when it comes to children's content?
Zeke, you want to go? I mean,
you go, and I'll
I mean, the simplest thing is the big cliche. I think you want to try to hide the vitamins as much as you can. I think if you're telling a good story, a good narrative, and you have a character in a world where you have arcs inside of that, naturally you will have conflict. You will approach issues. Use those narrative opportunities to tell the kinds of stories that need to be told right now, at least even through the lens of something very silly. Like, look back on things that we watched as kids. They all kind of had like the big life lesson tie-in at the end. I'm not saying we've like gotten away from that, but there's always an opportunity, I think, to hide the vitamins inside of content. But as far as like making things directly for kids, I mean, demographics change, topics, interests. Zeke?
I was going to say a big part of it, so much of it is data-driven initially. But again, like Brent's saying, like, they use the term hide the vitamins. I was, for the last couple of years, been using hide the broccoli, which is essentially the same thing.
I love both of those.
Yeah. And I try to do it in almost everything I touch, whether it's traditional, like, content that's focused on adults or whether it's kids. There's always going to be a surface level story that everybody likes. But then I always want to at least be at least asking questions that are meaningful without being super heavy handed. But I definitely want people to at least start asking questions, my biases alone shouldn't, influence the content that much. But I definitely want people to, if they have the capacity to scratch just beneath the surface, I want them to start thinking about things in a very interesting way.
Yeah. And you hinted on, Brent, that things are constantly changing in terms of what kids are interested in, and what's hot right now is not hot tomorrow, and who TikToks and who doesn't. So how do you guys keep up to make sure everything is relevant for the kids?
Well, you certainly want to be plugged in. I mean, I think as creators in general, you want to be where your audience is. So if that's with kids and family entertainment, or if that's in the horror industry, like keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening there.
Okay.
You know, I'm a man in my 30s. I got TikTok. I got to understand it. I got to know what's happening there. Like, that's a necessity. Am I going to post a bunch on it? Follow me. Who knows? But you got to kind of understand it. I mean, when new video games pop, or if the dance trend is happening, you never want to be reactionary to these things. You're hoping to be revolutionary with it and start that next thing. But it comes down to just understanding kids' affinities. I mean, if you look at a lot of kids programming, there's a reason why you get a lot of superheroes, because it tests very high with kids 10 and younger. Generally, boys like superheroes and girls like princesses. That's the representation the media is giving them right now, right? So can you take that and do something different with it? Right. Give them something familiar, but give it a spin. That's what we're always trying, or at least like hoping to do with content that we find.
And the data supports that that's how it's been for at least the last 30 years since we've been tracking it. So it's just like, you know, of course superheroes are a thing. Of course princesses are a thing. It's like, great, like Brent said, how do we find our unique take on something that already exists?
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting, to switch it up and keep it new, but understand what's selling, what's already working.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you look at co-viewing numbers, even whenever you get into like the research and the data of it, ideally kids and family content, kids content is exactly kids and family. So you want to create a co-viewing experience, which means if mom and dad are going to have to sit on the couch and watch a show, give them something that they can enjoy in that too. Like one of, if not the most co-viewed shows maybe ever is The Walking Dead. And that is not an appropriate show for children. Mm-hmm. But whenever we do research testing, it's like, I love SpongeBob. I love JoJo Siwa. I love The Walking Dead. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What happened there? Yeah. So even just understanding, like, not just what kids are interested in, but what you can get the whole family excited for. I mean, there's a ton of great programming that's coming up on the Nickelodeon linear broadcast stations that are really stepping up the production values and going like, let's create some premium content families can sit down and watch on a Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zeke, you've worked on a bunch of different competitions for Nickelodeon. So what is that like?
Oh no, did we lose?
I might have lost her right at what
How
was
do
that
you
like?
switch it up to be I'm directly connected to my internet, but it might be crazy. I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. So I was trying to talk about the competition shows you've been on, Zeke, and what is it like to create a competition show for children, and how is it the same and different from our adult competition shows?
Sure. There's a couple things to consider. One of them is, you know, I'll talk about, let's talk about, do you mind if we talk about, let's talk about Annie versus Hayley, LeBake Off, and that process. You know, what was unique about that process was having talent already assigned and, you know, finding a format that is not only, you know, there's probably about, we'll call it 25 different formats out there in the food space. And it's like, okay, which ones suit our talent and really play to their strengths? And then from there, then you really start dialing it in. Once you realize what makes your talent special, from there, you can really start crafting a show that really brings them out. And for me, you know, very often I just have to watch hours and hours of the talent, you know, either their YouTube channel, look at their Instagram, whatever, and try to find what has created an audience for them already. And then finding a way to blend that with a format that works for them.
Yeah. Especially, Zeke, like when you're doing that talent-driven creative, like you're taking existing influencers, existing content creators, and kind of putting them in a completely different scenario. Like in LeBake Off, those girls were not chefs.
Yeah, I didn't want to lean into that too hard.
Annie got pumped when she cracked an egg. Like that's the level, like what we were dealing. We made 4 episodes of a cooking show. Like that's what we were doing. So you find that, and through watching all of her content, and like, frankly, the first time we met her was on set. So like, then you go like, hope this works.
Yeah, based on everything you've seen. Like, yeah, but yeah.
Why was that the first time you had met her? Were you not able to meet her before?
Oh, Mary Lynn, let's talk about child labor laws.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you want to talk about the challenges of shooting with kids? Like,
Yeah, no, I do.
you know,
Should we wrap up the last thought first? Because that does kind of undo it opens a box.
Sure. The other thing I'll say too is in working with like Super League Gaming and that competition show, you know, that was a really unique sort of ask, if you will, when I was approached about that. You know, for that show, it was a kids competition reality show. I didn't have the most amount of experience working with kids at that point. In fact, I had relatively none. I hadn't done a ton of competition reality. But what I did have is I did have the ability to tell stories. I did have the ability to understand tone. I had the ability to understand character arcs. And for me, I underestimate that skill set. And I assume everybody has that skill set until you go into a production meeting with people who don't. Like, let's say you go over to a production company that focuses on video games as opposed to TV and film content, and realize that you have the superpower and you are able to share it with them and create worlds that they didn't even see. And they've been staring at the footage for who knows how long.
Wow.
That's really good.
Wow.
Thought you were gonna...
You all have superpowers, guys. Even you, Brent.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Really. See, this is what was going to happen, guys. I warned you. It's going to get vaguely inspirational already. We have 45 minutes of inspiration.
So inspired, and it's too early.
Yeah. No. And you know what? I'll key off that a little bit too. As far as like, you know, that was a job that was arguably, you know, not in my wheelhouse. But you know what? For me, I understood that you always take the job to get the next job. And so for me, I was just like, you know, here comes an opportunity. I'm going to step in and see if I can do it. And this is another thing that I'll tell any creator, that if you have the opportunity to save a quote unquote sinking ship and someone gives you an opportunity to fix something, absolutely take it. And there's two reasons why. If you fail, you know what? It was a sinking ship. You're not held accountable for the most part. And if it succeeds, you're an absolute hero. And so it's a no-lose situation if you have the ability to step in, show up, you know, be kind, do your job and execute. And, you know, you just learn how to create relationships. And so based off of that show, I created a relationship with Viacom Digital Studios, Nickelodeon, but then also Super League Gaming. And, you know, I continue to work with both of those guys, you know, 2-3 years later.
Yeah. And all of those kids on that one show alone, how do you control them all, in the sense of just, they're excited, they're together, they're playing games, this is so cool, they're going to be on TV. Keep that energy, but focus it where you need it.
I mean, that's
Brent,
interesting with those kids. Yeah. So Minecraft City Champs was basically, I think it was an 8-part documentary series that we did around this like esports championship of Minecraft, right? And so the kids being distracted or excited about being on TV, or that wasn't even on their minds. It was game time. I'm on the New York team and Boston's going down. Like, there wasn't, I don't think those kids were once ever playing to camera. I don't even know if they necessarily knew cameras were there. And because that was kind of like the esports athletes functioning in that like sanctioned way, our production was across 8 different cities. Or 4 different cities. Man, it's been a minute. I think it was 8.
It was.
It went from 8 to 4. God, that was a long.
There was a lot, and then we ended up focusing on the story.
Exactly. So we were just shooting the competition happening and interviewing kids and getting pieces. Basically, like, this is happening, we should shoot it, right? Mm-hmm. Not thinking, hey, we're going to put this together and try to make it like a really big, cool show. So Zeke came on board when it was, hey, we've been shooting this thing for like 2 months. We're about to wrap it up. We have a mountain of footage and kind of edits. Can you find the story in here, please? Yeah. And that's a challenge. So yeah. I was brought in after, I don't know, Brent, how long into the process was I brought in, based on your recollection from a couple of years ago? Like, from it getting kicked off to bringing you in, including production, is probably like 4 months, maybe a little longer. It'd been a minute. Like, it was supposed to be a really quick turnaround kind of a thing, and it ended up not being that. Right. And for me, I came in and I was told, you're not shooting another
frame of film. We have what we have.
True.
And I was essentially brought on as a story editor initially, and trying to shape some sort of narrative, kind of massage what they already had. And I didn't realize this until the job was almost over, but they were like, hey man, just so you know, we had 2 other people in here who didn't cut it. And I was really sort of I took a lot of, I don't know, I sort of appreciated that role a little bit more, because as I gained their trust, coming into somebody's production who's not having the best run at it, and trying to earn their trust and be like, guys, there is a story in here. There are some great characters. Here's my vision of this. And get their buy-in was great. And from there, pretty much I became showrunner at that point, as we continued to, work with Nickelodeon and really try to find some incredible stories in there, because those kids are amazing, and they gave some very big reactions. And, I'll say we had to nerf some of their character traits, if you will.
I was like, we could talk about it. There's a version of the show that Zeke made that is the most cutthroat, brutal reality competition show I've ever seen. Yeah. And these kids just kind of, over the course of the competition, personalities are twisting and devolving, and rivalries are becoming a little personal. There's a version of that show that is meant for like an adult audience to watch, because it's that like cringy and brutal.
24 to 50-year-olds would love this show.
But we, again, have a responsibility, not just to our audience, who probably wouldn't like that as much, but to those kids.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the kid who was just in like the summer league playing video games, and then a show comes out and like you're the bad guy?
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in the edit, and there's a lot of saving grace in the edit too.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying before about looking through all the footage of the kids and finding what draws their audience into them, you're already saying that you're putting out this much different way of navigating versus traditional reality TV that we watch, where it seems like producers are looking more for the soft spots on people to exploit them and get the drama that they need for their show. So you're already doing a much better thing by finding the positives in these children and what makes them
like, we never want to do anything at the expense of someone, especially not a kid. Like the easiest way to equate it is, think about sliming, like getting slimed. That's a great thing. It's an amazing thing. People get slimed after they win an award. You don't slime someone as a punishment for failing in a challenge or for not accomplishing something. It's not a punishment.
Yeah.
Being covered in a disgusting viscous liquid is the greatest thing that could happen.
It's a celebration.
Yeah. So it's never anything at someone's expense. But yeah, you have to be really careful when you tell these stories. The whole thing kind of loops back around, Mary Linda, something that you mentioned earlier with keeping track of kids' trends is this was a really long process for us to get it to the place that it ended up landing. And probably by the time we were getting ready to start launching the show, season 3 of a different game came out. Zeke?
It's a little game some kids refer to as Fortnite.
Great.
And
great. Everyone loves Fortnite now.
Everyone loves
Minecraft
Fortnite.
Show.
Yeah.
Doesn't have an audience.
Doesn't have an audience.
No.
And so all of this effort, this time, and like, I'll still stand by the narrative and the show concept. But if our audience is not connecting with the actual game, which is like what would draw them in, silence. Like, it was just like, wish this was like, top comment was probably wish this was Fortnite. And
like, this would have crushed if it was Fortnite champs or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And
we know.
We know. We knew as we were getting into our final edits, we're like, this Fortnite thing is
this is going to be a problem. Yeah,
this is going to be a big problem.
This is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again,
sorry.
What are you going to do? Like,
what are you going to do?
You try to make the best thing you can with the cards that you're dealt. And as a creator, like, you just keep showing up. You keep taking swings. And that's something we learned. What are you going to do?
Right. Oh, you got to lean with it. Figure it out. But let's go back now to what we were going to circle back on before, with studio teachers and
Yes.
set life, because
Oh yeah,
I don't think people
we
know
started
all
there,
about
but we went some places.
it's
Yeah.
okay. These things happen, and we enjoy them. And
So to kind of set the stage up, when you're working with kids, when you're working with minors in California or elsewhere, they're beholden to the exact same rules that any minor working any job would be, with some tweaks and changes because of the specificity of what the ask is. So if you hire a child to work on your production as talent, you've got some things that you need to go through. There's I can't remember the SAG, I think it's Form F. You got to go fill that out and get all the approvals and stuff. But as a director or producer, when you're working with minors, you definitely need to not just be aware of that in sense of etiquette on set. Sets can kind of be like a very laissez-faire. We're talking the way we would talk at home and with each other and with friends. And hey, there's 12-year-olds around. You can't do that. But it goes a little bit even past that. I'll use Annie versus Hayley, LeBake Off as the example. So we knew that the availability of the kids, because at that time our two main talent were also booked on another show on a different network. So a kid during the week can only work so many hours or so many days. And so since we're kind of sharing that week with another show, we only got 2 days to film 5 episodes of the cooking show, again with girls who don't know how to cook, in a real practical functioning industrial kitchen that was open while we were shooting. And we're just dealing with all of this chaos and mayhem. But now let's talk about your absolute requirements when you have a minor on set. So again, keeping that in mind, we're in a functioning industrial kitchen. Well, when you have any talent, you're going to want to give them a nice place to sit, right? You want to give them like a little green room. A lot of studios and sound stages will have that. A functioning kitchen does not. And one step further than that, with a kid, especially during school year hours, if they're supposed to be in school, they have to go to school. And they need to have a quiet, 4-walled space to do that. So we built a classroom inside of the kitchen to give them 4 walls and a door so they could have a quiet space to go, because they need a place to not only go over their classwork, but general R&R that's required to give them like a nice private space. And while they're back there doing the classwork, their set teacher is also back there with them. And their set teacher will follow them everywhere they go. Because one likely misnomer I didn't really know before working at Nickelodeon that I think is really valuable to know is when you have a set teacher or a studio teacher on your production, they're not just there to like hand the kids the iPad and tell them to do their homework. They are the advocate for every minor on that set. They are the eyes and ears of governmental compliance for your production. So they're not just there to like hand off the iPad and go get the signature signed, thing by the producer that says they went to school and approve all their hours and stuff. If they see anything happening in your production that they deem unsafe, unnecessary, putting any kind of risk or exposure that the minor might have, they can shut your production down on the spot. The only other person that can really do that is like whoever's cutting the check, right? Like if the studio executive hates it, like they can just tell you to stop. But so can the set teacher. So one, be very aware of that, because I've been on sets where people are like, hey, that set teacher's a super weirdo, huh? And they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? One, you don't need to talk about other people. And two, he's going to shut this thing down. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Relationships.
They are responsible for tracking the hours that the kids are working too. And this is something that you need to know whenever you're planning your production out, that you only get so many hours with a kid on set, and that does not mean them in front of a camera.
Right.
That means their physical presence on a set. I want to make sure I get these numbers right, so I'm going to read. So while school is in session, they could be on set for 10 hours. They need to be in school for 3 hours. That doesn't necessarily need to be uninterrupted. You can split your schooling up. So if you want to do like an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half like after wrap, like while the crew is breaking down or whatever, you can do that. I have generally always found stacking the school in the morning during prep, setup, getting your lighting and stuff ready, have stand-ins, be ready where they are. So once the girls are done with school, they go right into set, do a last looks for lighting, do any adjustments, then go get them into wardrobe and makeup. Like once they're out, they got to keep moving, because in addition to the 3 hours of school, they need 1 hour of mandatory rest. That can be broken up into 30-minute sections. Sometimes you can do 15-minute segments. I prefer to do them in shorter breaks. Frankly, so does the talent. I don't want an hour-long break in the middle of the day and have both other sides of it be brutal. If I get a couple of 15-minute breaks throughout the day, I'm great. I can go rest and relax and try to plan those when we have like a big reset. We're going into a new setup and we're going to have to change over. Try to bake in those breaks strategically when you know you're not going to be rolling anyway.
Right.
They also have to eat.
Right.
So there's an hour for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So of your 10-hour day, 3 hours of school, 1 hour of mandatory rest, 1 hour for a meal. So the maximum you could have them be on camera is 5 hours. Can I complicate it further? They got to do wardrobe, hair, and makeup in the beginning. You're going to have to do a lighting, blocking rehearsal. You're going to have to go over your script. You're probably going to have to rewrite some things, make sure it's in their voice. Like Zeke said, we're kind of writing these shows assuming their voices, but I'm not a 12-year-old girl. So like, if you wouldn't actually say Gucci, like don't, and let's please talk about it. Like give them a voice in that as well. So you're taking a lot of time off doing that. And in a thing Nickelodeon loves to do, we love to slime people.
Right.
You're going to get slimed.
Mm-hmm.
Cleanup is also included in that time. So there have been times where we've had minors on set knowing that it's going to culminate in a big slime moment and have been able to shoot with them for 1 hour. And they were on set for 10.
Wow.
So Annie versus Hayley LeBake Off, we're in the kitchen. We're supposed to do 4 episodes. So we split it 2 episodes one day, 2 episodes the next day. Start making the show. We're getting into production. Things are moving a little slower. You know, it's a new show. It's a new crew. It's new talent. It's also the first day of a production. So it's always a little slower until you kind of hit that groove.
Yeah.
We only got 1 episode shot that day. And so now I'm going into a day 2 knowing 3 hours of school, 1 hour break, 1 hour for lunch. We're behind. We have 3 episodes of a show and like 4 hours, 5 hours to do it. That was a day where directing on set ended with the studio teacher's hand on my shoulder while he's looking at his watch, literally counting down the seconds in my ear until the production has to wrap. And I'm just like filming this last moment of like a judging scene. Like we'll get insert shots of the food later, whatever. We don't need them for that. Like we need faces and voices. Let's go, kids. All right. Bang, 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 bang. And legitimately there was just a point and he was like, and that's a wrap. You heard the man. Cut. And then we're done.
We got what we got.
Wow.
So that's how close you can get to it. Now, I have had it work out in really beautiful ways because you learn from those experiences. Mm-hmm. You start to schedule your production a little bit more strategically, figure out places where you know a lot of stuff's going to overlap. That LeBake Off was season 1 of Annie versus Hayley. Season 3 of Annie versus Hayley, we did 4 episodes in 2 days, and we wrapped both shoot days 3 hours early. It was wonderful.
There was a learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think we're done. Should they finish? They finished school? Well, let's just shoot some more stuff. And then we did that for like an hour, and then we're like, guys, we're going to wrap 2 hours early. So sometimes working with kids is awesome because you're never going to have a 14 or a 16-hour day on set.
Right.
Because they can't be there for that long. So it's fun. I mean, it becomes this like pre-production Tetris that you kind of have to figure out. There's certainly strategies around it, but it's one of the more important pieces of advice I could give, especially going into a production with a minor, is really look at those days and how you're scheduling it out and make sure all those moving pieces are like as efficient as they can be. I'll always meet up with my AD the night before a shoot, or if it's a multi-day shoot, just the night before our next day, and just look at the schedule side by side and make sure like, oh, wait a minute. No. Like they can do a 20-minute break here while we're resetting up for this and give them a full 40 before lunch. Cause we got to get that light up. And that's, you know, there's a lot more that you can help out with once you kind of understand how the pieces come in.
Yeah. And then does that have you on your end hiring like a second AD, a second AD, a second to make sure everything is really this train going?
Often no. And that's just because of budgets.
Yeah.
We're not doing cheap, fast, and happy. I really don't like the word scrappy for productions that just have low budgets, because scrappy gives you this mental picture or impression of somebody that, like, Zeke's a really scrappy guy. What I'm saying is he'll do it whenever I want at the drop of a hat and probably really cheap. That's what scrappy means.
Yeah.
So
if someone ever describes
that,
me as that, like, hey, he's scrappy, he'll wear 4 hats for one rate.
Yes,
yeah,
it almost devalues you a little bit. But when you are making lower budget content, I always say put the dollars in front of the camera, whether that's talent or production design. Because we can fill in a lot of stuff, but we can't really like make the world we built better. We can limit that by doing very simple shoots, just like a purple seamless with some like nice lighting, get them off of the background a little bit, just give it some depth. Then we can put the money we have left over anywhere. Or we made a Christmas special last year for the Nickelodeon YouTube channel where we built like a 270-degree winter wonderland inside of a giant soundstage with like diegetic games you could play. And I'm like, this is all of the money in front of the camera, because in post I was going in and like adding snow effects, and I'm not an editor, but I was like, I want snow. We can't pay anybody.
That's crazy. And I think when it comes to the writers that are watching right now, this is all really helpful information to have, so that way they can be more mindful as they create their scripts. So knowing all these, I don't want to say limitations, but the way the hours work for children.
That's exactly what they are. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it positive.
I'm going to counter that. I don't think they're limitations.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we have a limitation, not limitation spin-off here.
And it says give you boundaries. Boundaries make you creative.
That's true. But how would you suggest writers out there begin their script process in terms of how many children are in it, and
fade in
and just go?
Zeke, was that not good?
I mean, it's practical. It's practical. But
how would you start your script process? Sorry. Don't limit yourself. Never ever limit your creative by thinking about what the budget could be. Be prepared for an executive maybe to ask you in a room what the less expensive version of it could be. That's a question I've heard on both sides of the table, both pitching and listening to pitches, because people kind of want to know like where the barometer is of how inexpensively can we make this and still have the quality maintained. So maybe always in your mind have a few things like, okay, instead of the Winter Wonderland, quite frankly, that show I wouldn't have done that with. Like, in retrospect, it looks beautiful. It's like one of the bigger sets I've had designed, but that show's the exact same show if we put it against a seamless and just did like fun graphics. Like, ostensibly, I don't know if it really raised the bar that much. But never in the ideation phase. I mean, Zeke, I tell you this when you write stuff for us all the time. Never limit your thoughts now, because other people further down the line will start to put those limitations on you. So whatever you like are introducing into the world, have it be the most ambitious version of that. Because if you start diluting your own lemonade, like by the end of it, it's just gonna all be water.
Right. Yeah, and it's tough sometimes as a writer, producer, director to not already be thinking about those things down the line, especially when you're just in the creative development phase or you're just the writer on this one. It's like, go for the bigger version and allow people down the chain to say, what if we only had 2 locations? What if we had 3 characters instead of 7? But try to turn off your producerial brain just a little bit as you're trying to create interesting stories in different worlds or anything.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong way to go into a room and pitch. I will say, you could do just a text write-up, do a full deck, go to a proof of concept or something. I think if you are pitching something that might be difficult for someone to imagine, or perhaps even worse and all too common, you're pitching to people in a room so they later will go do your pitch as a game of telephone to someone else. So if they're not just as excited and passionate and intricately understanding it as you are, they're probably going to pitch it wrong or not do it justice. So some of the things I've seen have come in like pure storyboards with voiceover or just concept art. Like the ones that really stick out to me do have something in that pitch deck that gives you something to like really remember and hold on to. Like, I don't know, if you're gonna try to explain your idea to somebody else, you can either just give them the information so they can explain it, or get them to also be as passionate about it, so they're going off and selling it, not like reporting in.
Yeah.
Right.
And just to sort of key off that, and whenever you pitch, whether it's, you know, at Nickelodeon or anywhere else, be excited about your idea. Like, like that is so important. So important, because if you're not excited about the idea, how do you expect other people to be excited about the idea? Because that game of telephone is so real. You're probably going to be pitching, I don't know if you're represented or not, but you're going to be pitching to a junior development executive more than likely, who has to pitch it to their boss, who has to pitch it to their boss, who has to pitch it to their boss. And depending on where this is in the process, there could be many layers of bosses.
Yeah.
But at the
there
core
usually are.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a passion for whatever you're doing. So try to pick an idea. For me, I tend to look at it and I get a little, I shouldn't say too invested, but whenever I'm on a project, I try to think of it as a project that if I have to spend the next 6 months of my life either writing, producing, or directing, I would be psyched to do it. You know, so definitely try to, and it could be longer. You know, they say in features, 2 years of your life. Well, you know, here it's like I try to really invest myself in whatever we're doing, because there's a chance this is my life for the next 6 months.
Yeah. And I was like, pitching is a 99% no game. And I think it's really valuable probably to know that every single one of those people Zeke just mentioned that are going to have meetings or go pitch it to the next person or go to pitch to the next person, the next person's job is to ask questions and try to find flaws in it, because it's going through a QC process. It's just making sure that something is like as buttoned up that you can have. It's almost like kind of preparing like a political candidate for debate or something. Is like, let's throw as much as we can at this thing. And if it stands up at the end of it, like, hell yes, great.
Right.
So sometimes that's kind of where things die. And it's not like people are doing that diabolically, but if I get a script that comes along, like, I'm going to check if you like understand narrative structure, like first.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't pass that, like the next person's going to be checking for something that's less creative. And that's probably more nitpicky. And then it's going to go on and it's going to go on. But like, if you have a great idea, what you turn in is usually not what gets made. I think everybody knows that. There's two different versions of everything. There's the script and then the movie. But to be open and collaborative with those changes those are the exciting times when, as a creator working with a studio or vice versa, as the studio working with a creator, finding collaborators that are really open, not to like the garbage studio notes, but like that I can do script reads through with Zeke and his creative partner Jarrett on like our Don't Go Alone series. And I like page 1 to 3 of those scripts with you guys, maybe 4 of them. And they were like long too. And they just, after reading through them, I was like, this is not an easy note to give, but because of Shark Tank, because of these reasons, it's a no for me. And that was totally fine. And it became something that, you know, the 3 of us were equal contributors in creatively, and it came out really great. And I have a bunch of other companies that I work with and individuals on my internal team too, that we just get excited about the prospect of collaborating and sharing ideas. And nothing is precious, because you don't want to fall in love with something. Zeke, I think you told me this way back when, and I stole it. Like, you have to be an idea factory and not an idea warehouse. So if you're giving away ideas, you're gonna have more. Like, I'd hope.
Yeah,
like,
I know I haven't.
It's okay to share.
I haven't had my last good idea, and if I ever think that, then I'm done. I should find something else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, be a factory, not a warehouse.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it feels, Zeke, like once you start letting those creative gears turn, then they just naturally don't stop as long as you keep working that muscle. Do you feel that way too?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and that also comes with working, you know, if you can find a good development executive to work with, that you're on the same page. That's super important to the process. I've worked some other places in my career, and it's been rather than best idea wins out of 2 or 3 people, it's roadblock, trying not to, be collaborative. And in this space, it's so important to have somebody that's an advocate for your show and continue to try and create the best thing possible. So, I mean, if you can find fans of yours, if you can find people who champion for you internally at these places as a creator, you're going to have a much better time getting your thing actually made.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of the pitch too, because I'm not looking at and just like buying or optioning a script. I'm saying, I want to get on a Zoom call with you 3 times a week for the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's a huge part of your pitch as well, is it's not just the content, but it's like, you're kind of like on a little blind date.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And I know we're Brett and I are like, we could talk about this for hours, of course, but like so much of this is like not just your concept, but your personality. You're always auditioning for your next job as a creator, as a writer. It's like, hey, if I go in to pitch Brent on something and the concept isn't great, but he connects with me as a creator, guess what? If something comes in, he'll be thinking of me to potentially make that thing that much better. So it's just like, I can't stress enough how much this business is about relationships, being kind, and showing up when you need to.
Yeah, when you convert those acquaintances into advocates, that's like really where I think like the magic in this industry starts to happen. Because it's tough to get in.
Yeah. And I can imagine for some of the viewers at home who maybe are a little more introverted, that talking about this might be giving them anxiety or just overwhelming them, because the idea of the pitch for a lot of people who are writers solely and are used to just themselves and their computer, the pitch gets them caught up because it feels like a performance, and you want a lot of energy and they understand that, but they're naturally more reserved. So what are ways they can practice to be true to who they are, but like get out of their shell a little bit?
I mean, I think not to poorly use a sports metaphor, but like every bullpen's got a great relief pitcher. If you feel, first of all, if you feel like nervous about pitching or getting up and talking, and you think it's like personality driven, one, like explore that a little bit. Like I was the exact same way. So I signed up for UCB classes. I was like, I don't really like talking in front of people. Like I'm in an industry where I have to do that a whole lot. I need to get way more comfortable doing this. Like signed up for improv and just like, tried to like build out the toolkit a bit. But one path that if you just really don't think you're that guy, and I know a lot of people in Hollywood do this, get a room guy. That's what producers are for. Get yourself a producer who also really passionately cares about that idea, or frankly is just looking for something cool to work on. They will go be that advocate for you, and it opens your network up a little bit.
Right. And they might have a relationship with those people too already. So like it makes it that much easier because they have a track record that they're willing to listen to this idea. So all that. Yeah.
Like Zeke, I think it's really cool what you and Jared are doing for that script that you wrote, Karate City, where we put on a live table read and invited people who weren't necessarily even like a part of what you guys had gone and shot or the script that you wrote, but was like, just like, come watch this thing, and like producer friends and like other writers. And it was just a way to kind of like say, hey, we all know people. How do we extend this network? Because maybe somebody saw that and was like, oh my God, I loved it. And they could have messaged you afterward or whatever. It's keeping that film festival kind of mentality, right? Of like creating these connections, really like harvesting them and paying attention to it, knowing there's not going to be immediate gains or benefit from it. But in the long run, like those people will go be your heroes in rooms you don't even know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I saw that thing from that one guy. What was his name? Let's bring him in. Like that. Those are the type of connections you really hope for, that you've built enough goodwill over time that that's your name moving forward.
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to pitching in these opportunities, do people always have to have representation with the Nickelodeon side? Because I've had a few talks where mostly they say yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally, if you're going to go through the linear or the broadcast path, so there's development happening all over the board for so many things. Again, screens of all sizes. To get something that's probably going to go broadcast on TV or make its way into like the Nickelodeon movies pipeline, generally that's coming from agents, from managers, from direct reach out. Every network kind of has their list of things they're interested in and exploring and looking for writing samples that are maybe amongst a certain genre. So all that like insidery stuff does happen, needing the managers and the agents. Most of the time unsolicited pitches, so if you didn't book it in that way, are not accepted. And that's not a personal slight. That is legally. If you've got a great idea for Zeke, name a show, not a real one, a fake one.
Cheese It, the movie.
Okay, well, that's a terrible example because that's copywritten. I got to go to our brand team.
Okay, fine. Note to self.
All right, so Zeke emails me, and he attaches a amazing poster art and a 30-page treatment for note to self. I open it, I read it, I respond back to him, and then we don't really follow up. Hey, it's not right for Nickelodeon. This was really cool though. Like, best of luck. Let me know if I can do anything for you in the future. 5 years from now, I'm not at Nickelodeon anymore, but they make a show called Note to Self. That's not exactly what Zeke said, but it's close enough. That kind of puts the company, whose vested interest they're the most interested in a weird spot. Mm-hmm. So looking at unsolicited pitches, at least without having an agreement, we have done that before where it's come in through somebody without a manager, or it was recommended by a colleague or another creator or a talent that we had. A lot of places will have like a single form that basically says like, hey, we didn't steal this, don't sue us. Right. We promise not to. You promise not to. Great. High five. That's my understanding of business and legal affairs.
And that's pretty standard wherever you pitch, whatever you do. Like, so if I'm pitching, over at A&E or any of those other like companies that specialize in traditional unscripted, I'm still signing, before I even send in a log line, I'm being asked to sign our submission release form and be like, here's my idea. Here's my log line, and if they connect with any 5 of my ideas, they'll be like, tell me more. Yeah. But it's pretty standard. Like, I just don't want people to be like, you're stealing my ideas, because everybody has ideas. It's so much of it is the execution.
Here's 2 different paths or ways that I've had scripts end up in front of me. One very good, one very bad. I'll do very bad first.
Okay.
Marilyn, I told you this yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm on LinkedIn, and my job title on LinkedIn is my job title. Director of Development and Production. Having development on LinkedIn will guarantee you get probably 5 to 6 scripts cold emailed to you with PDFs attached every week. I can open my LinkedIn right now and I guarantee you someone has sent me a script or a treatment or a write-up or a deck or a proof of concept or something. Yeah. And I legitimately cannot look at any of them. Mm-hmm. And even if I could, it's just not the right approach. When you're doing anything creative or when you're doing anything that is going to require, let's sum it down, work. I'm basically like gonna give you a lot of time, attention, and money. If you just randomly email me a thing with a written pitch that's like, what Nickelodeon's missing? Like, hey man, who are you? Like, I just accepted your request because I'm democratic and I'll accept all of them. And now I'm like getting this here, and there's no need, pull, or desire necessarily to like go above and beyond. Mm-hmm. Much less the fact that most of those PDFs are 120 pages long. I'm not going to read that. Not right now. Not on LinkedIn. The better way to do it that I have had also through LinkedIn, and this isn't like a pro tip or anything. This is just coincidentally both of these happen on LinkedIn, but it could be whatever. Instagram stories, DMs, people emailing you. Literally just saying, hey, I saw what you made. I thought it was really cool. Do you have 15 minutes to hop on a Zoom or maybe grab a coffee? And I've done probably 50 or 60 of those. Yeah. And those could be the same people. It's just 2 different approaches.
Right.
So sometimes it's just about building the relationship first, because once you build the relationship, inevitably the question's going to become, so what are you working on?
Right.
But you're not going to like walk up to a group of people standing at a party and be like, it's incredible. It's basically Die Hard in space. Okay.
Cool, man. Cool. All right. I'm going to finish this conversation. I'll be, right back.
Right.
Yeah, I get those still too. As a producer, people will cold, hit me and just be like, here's my script. Here's my concept. Take it wherever you take things. And I'm just like, I don't know who you are. And I don't know if you've passed the sniff test of being a psycho or not, because you clearly didn't, because you don't know how to deal with people. One of my favorite approaches is seeing somebody's name in the trades. And if I had a tangential interaction with them and I have their email, I'll congratulate them on their project with no ask. I ask nothing of them. I just say, hey, congratulations on, I'm Right Here, the movie, whatever it is. Saw you in the trades. Congratulations. But eventually, if they write back, you get that response that you're always looking for. That's awesome. What are you working on?
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
You don't open your email with, hey, I saw in the Hollywood Reporter that your thing got greenlit. That's really great. Here's my thing that I just finished. Could you take a look at it and let me know?
Get out of here.
Yeah. Hope all is well.
Yeah. And that's not to say that people don't care. Is that everyone is busy.
Right.
And everyone is a little scatterbrained, especially right now, and trying to stay on top of everything.
Yeah.
The best thing that you can do in your approach is think to yourself beforehand, how can I make their life easier? Because if somebody approaches me with something that comes across as a solution, that seems way more enticing. Oh, this is going to make my life even easier? If if necessity is the mother of invention, like, great.
Yeah.
I'm busy and I need winning shows. Like, if you can identify the problem that I'm not seeing,
great. That's a win for everybody.
Yeah. Because in my head, as we're talking about needing rep to pitch and everything, I'm thinking, well, maybe the loophole is if you have that relationship built with a producer and they have rep, well, there you go. But still, it's about building the relationships to get there.
Yeah. I'll just tag that quickly because I know we could go on to hour 2 or 3 and talk about this forever because Brent and I, we all love to talk, is that, even though I'm represented, 90% of the work that comes to fruition comes from relationships. It's internally generated. Your reps get 10% of whatever you get. So they're going to do about 10% of the work. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? It's still on you to build those relationships. And that's not a slight against anybody's rep, but it's just the nature of the beast. It's like people like working with people they like. Full stop.
Like, and it is a trope, but luck is preparation meets opportunity. And if working in this industry, no matter where you are, is a 10-year journey before you start to get a spark of not just success, but maybe I know what I'm doing. You're going to meet a lot of people along that way, and everybody's got to get lucky if they're going to break out at some point. So it's about getting those reps up. If you want to be directing something, it's really difficult to convince people to give you money to direct if I can't watch something you've directed. Same with writing, same with producing, same with acting, So it's putting in that preparation, and while you're building that network, the opportunity is going to come eventually. You just got to make sure that you're ready for it.
You just have to.
I've had people that I reached out to who weren't necessarily ready for it. And some that I reached out to too late. And I was like, what do you mean you work at Netflix now?
Timing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of timing, we're running short on it. And Philip says we have a couple questions coming in. So let's hop over. So the ask for coffee was always a thing. Is the Zoom coffee a newer thing? And do you think it'll stay? It feels like a great tool when we're not in town.
I think it's a great tool when you are in town. It's a great tool anywhere. Especially right now, just everybody being quarantined, and now Zoom and those kind of services are so ubiquitous. My batting average for reaching out to people and asking for 15 minutes is super high. I'll generally try to frame it in a way that it's not impactful to like their work day, and that there's absolutely no requirement for them to like join. Kind of like saying, I'm going to be at the coffee shop at noon. If you decide to show up, it'd be cool to drink coffee with you. But if not, I'm leaving at 12:45. And so like some mornings I'll, or, evenings, I'll be, hey, I usually get up really early, drink my coffee before I get to work. That's usually like 6:30, 7 o'clock. If you're up early too, or, at any point before 10, I'll be logged in on Zoom or on Slack. Hit me up. We'll jump on. I'll drink a cup of coffee with you. Like I'll do it around your schedule if I can. Like, again, trying to make it convenient, trying to make life easier for them. But in that, I've reached out to folks I've never met before who work in development at other companies, folks in management. And I think people are a little more inclined to say yes to those things right now, especially if you have a previous relationship with them. Like, it has been a wonderful time to reconnect with colleagues whom you have not talked to in a while. If there was a producer, anybody that you just haven't talked to in a while, who you just like, now's the time to reach out, because everyone's kind of spark of like, oh yeah, I love that guy. Like that's kind of happening right now. And frankly, people have the time to jump on for 10 minutes and just say, hey.
Yeah. Like a huge ask pre-quarantine was like, hey, can you meet me for coffee? And you live on opposite sides of town.
I'd be like,
That's a 2 to 3 hour commitment for me to get a 15-minute coffee with you.
Yeah, Zeke lives in Santa Monica. I'm never getting coffee with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever. I'm not going to do that.
Never. And so I'll.
I've gone to Santa Monica for Zeke. Why won't you do it, Brent? Right, Zeke?
Yeah, you have.
No.
Brent is not a friend.
No,
yes,
so have
full stop. Yeah, exactly.
No, we'll settle on Brent's not a friend. What was your thought again? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Zoom calls are great right now. It's a low impact ask. Lately, I've done a bunch. People I've met through the Producers Guild who also work in TV at PBS. They're like, hey, saw you on this webinar. Let's reach out. I don't know who this person is, but I'm willing to spend 20 minutes on them, seeing if we're working on things that might be great. But you know what? Who knows? It might not be today, but again, you're constantly auditioning for the next job. Maybe you have a project where you need them or vice versa, but it's just like 15 minutes and I'm already at my desk. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Do we have another one, Philip? I think we have one more. How is Zeke's beard so good?
A YouTube comment.
Huh. Well, thank you. First of all, appreciate it. Practice. And then it's gotten a lot of gray, especially in my 30s.
I love
due to
the gray.
trauma. Yeah. So
that's all the Minecraft City Champs?
Yeah. That's this one is Minecraft City Champs. This patch here was let's see, which one was that? That was the one that didn't go. Like that's this patch over here is the ones that didn't go.
I'm glad none of those patches are speaking on panels for Catalyst.
Oh no, I love that. You guys are great. I love being a part of it.
Thank you. Well, we are a little over time, so thanks for staying on with me a little past that and for all of this helpful input in the stories. Everyone at home, stay tuned. We have more coming up, but let's wrap out with a little Nickelodeon VO, Brent.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching Catalyst Story Road. For more information, be sure to visit us online and tune into youtube.com/Nickelodeon. New videos every week, only on Nick.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Part of my job. Thank you.